You know, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, like the smell of fresh bread baking in your own kitchen, or that perfect chewy bite of a homemade pizza crust, or a cake so tender it just melts in your mouth. And the hero behind all of that goodness? Flour. But this simple-looking powder holds a ton of secrets. Come on, you know the feeling. You walk into the grocery store, you need what should be a simple bag of flour, and bam, you're hit with this wall of choices. All these different numbers and names and grains. It's so easy to just grab whatever and hope for the best. But what if I told you it's actually way, way simpler than it looks? Okay, so let's get into it. The key to unlocking your absolute best baking is right there, printed on the package. It's a code. And today, we're going to crack that code together. We are going to turn that confusion into total confidence. First things first, let's tackle that confusing wall of choices head on. We're going to demystify all those different types and names and figure out what they really mean for what you're trying to cook. So yeah, you'll see a ton of variety out there. You've got your classic wheat, your hearty rye, even trendy stuff like almond and coconut flours. But let's be honest, the real head scratcher for most of us is wheat flour. Why are there so many different kinds, and what on earth do those numbers on the bag mean? Well, to understand that, we first have to see how it's actually made. Right, so let's go behind the scenes at a modern flour mill. Trust me, understanding this process is the very first step to cracking the whole flour code. It's a pretty cool journey from a tiny little grain to that fine powder we all know. It basically all happens in three main stages. First, the grain gets a good cleaning. Then it's conditioned, which is just a fancy word for moisturized. And this conditioning step? It's the real secret sauce. It makes the tough outer bran layer kind of flexible, while the starchy inside, that's called the endosperm, gets more brittle. This makes it so much easier to separate them during grinding. Finally, the whole thing is ground up, sifted, and sorted into all the different kinds of flour. And that brings us to the main event. Now that we know how flour is made, we can finally unlock the two key secrets that will let you choose the absolute perfect flour every single time. So here it is, secret number one. That number you see on the bag, like 450 or 750 or 2000, that's the type. All it tells you is how much mineral content, or ash, is left in the flour after the milling. The more of the outer parts of the grain that are included, the higher the ash content. So, put simply, a bigger number means a darker, more whole grain flour. Simple as that. And check this out. Here's a perfect example of how this works in the real world using some common Polish flour types. You can see type 450, it's called tortowa, is super fine and light. It's perfect for delicate cakes. Then you move up to type 750, chlebowa, and you get a stronger flour that's just ideal for bread. And way up at type 2000, ryzowa, you've got a dark wholemeal flour. You see the logic, right? The number literally tells you what its job is. But hold on, the type number isn't the whole story. To truly become a master of the flour aisle, you need to know the second secret. And it all comes down to one little word: protein. Protein content, which can range anywhere from about 6% to over 20%, is the thing that determines your final texture. It's pretty straightforward. High protein means more gluten, and that's what creates that strong, elastic, chewy structure you want for things like bread and pasta. Low protein flour, that gives you a tender, fine, crumbly texture, exactly what you need for delicate cakes and pastries. Okay, time to put it all together. Now that we've got our new knowledge of type and protein, we can walk down that aisle and confidently match the right flour to any baking project we can dream up. So here it is, your official cheat sheet for the next grocery run. For those delicate cakes, you're going to want a low-protein type 450. Craving that authentic, chewy Italian pizza crust? Look for type 00. A good, sturdy loaf of bread needs the muscle of a type 750. And for something like perfect tender pierogi, type 550 is your go-to. See? Once you know the code, it's actually that simple. But you know, the story of flour doesn't just stop with wheat. Not even close. In fact, we are in the middle of a full-blown flour renaissance with some incredible innovations that are completely changing this humble pantry staple. The options out there are just exploding, especially in the gluten-free world. I mean, bakers now have this massive palette of new flavors and textures to play with, and each one brings something totally unique to the table. You've got flours made from buckwheat, rice, corn, nuts like almond, even legumes like chickpeas. And every single one has its own distinct taste and baking properties. For instance, buckwheat flour gives you this amazing, hearty, earthy flavor that's perfect for pancakes, while almond flour can create these wonderfully moist and delicate cakes. But maybe the most exciting frontier of all is in sustainability. The future of flour isn't just about finding new grains to mill, it's about using what we already have in some incredibly clever ways. Yup, the future is upcycled. And the ingenuity here is just wow. Companies are taking food byproducts that we used to consider waste, like the soy pulp leftover from making tofu or sunflower seeds after they're pressed for oil, and they're turning them into nutritious new flours. There's even a company in Austria, Kerntech, making flour from apricot and plum pits. It's a total zero waste approach that's as healthy as it is brilliant. As the source material puts it so perfectly, we are living through a true flour renaissance. This simple, humble pantry staple is suddenly a hotbed of innovation, and it's all being driven by our search for better health, more sustainability, and exciting new flavors. So, the next time you find yourself facing that wall of flour, don't panic. Just use this super simple two-step checklist. First, ask yourself, do I want something chewy and elastic or something tender and crumbly? That tells you if you need high or low protein. Second, decide, do I want a light, refined flour or a darker whole grain one? That tells you which type number to look for. And all of this leaves us with one really big question. From ancient traditional grains to upcycled fruit pits, the very definition of what flour is expanding every single day. So it really makes you wonder, what incredible new flours will we all be baking with in the future?